What's up, guys? This is Nico from Limitless, and this time we're taking a look at Lost March, a deck that got a lot of hype, especially from players from the US. Surprisingly, not a lot in Europe. So it seems to be more like a US thing, just like last year where we had basically Zorak versus Buzzwole. Now it's kinda like Pikazek and Malama versus Lost March, but also on the other side, US things, those decks are good as well. But I feel like they don't like Zorak as much. They probably put it as like number 4 or 5 spot of the top decks, because I saw a lot of people actually saying Jump Love in their top 3. So yeah, I felt like we definitely have to take a look at it, because I kind of like the deck, but I also don't. So if that makes some sense. But yeah, let's just take a look at the list first. Of course, since we're playing Lost March, we have our main attacker, one of our main attacker, which is Jump Love, Lost March. This deck does 20 damage for each Pokemon in your Lost Zone, except Prism Star, which is very important to note, because you can't just Ultra Ball away Prism Stars and then just Lost March for 200 turn 1. You actually can't use those Prisms. Yeah, and of course, our secondary attacker is going to be Natu, which also does Lost March, but instead for Grass, it's for DCE. Same attack, completely same, 20 damage for each Lost Zone Pokemon. And yeah, for Jump Love, we also have Skiploom, which with its ability can put Skiploom and every, you put all cards attached to it into the Lost Zone. That includes pre-evolution Pokemon, so you evolve your Hoppip, which does nothing, so you don't have to pay attention to the tech and stuff. You put your Hoppip, evolve into Skiploom, and then on turn 2 you can already use Floral Path, get these two Pokemon in the Lost Zone, and you get a Jump Love. So you have a stage 2 attacker on turn 2. So this is why this is not considered a stage 2 deck, because you're basically playing a stage 1 deck. Like, you evolve once and then you can attack, and you also have Natu, which is even a basic. And how else do we get Pokemon into Lost Zone? We have 4 Trumbeak, which once per turn, if this Pokemon is in your hand, you may reveal it. If you do, look at the top card of your opponent's deck and put this Pokemon in the Lost Zone. If the card on your opponent's deck is a supporter card, you can put it into the Lost Zone as well. If your opponent has no card in the deck, you can't use this ability. That will rarely ever happen. I mean, if your opponent doesn't have any cards in deck, you don't need to attack, because you just pass and you win. So this last sentence is not really relevant for us. I feel like, we should just talk about all the Pokemon first before we get into items, and then we talk about the synergy and stuff. We have one Oranguru for like onboard consistency, but sometimes you won't even have to use it. Then we have two Marshadow, which in this deck becomes very powerful because you have a lot of outs to get into your supporters. So let's say, for example, a Malama deck that already plays a lot of outs, but most of outs are like treasures for Lela and stuff. You Marshadow yourself, you can still get into a supporter card. But in this deck, getting some items that you can play down or getting a supporter card is so likely, because you fin your deck so quickly, especially turn 2. Like, let's say you put on 3 Skiploom, which is not that unrealistic, to be honest. You take all these Skiplooms away, which is 6 cards. You get 2 Jump Loves from the deck, which makes it 8 cards overall. Then you have the Marshadow that you play, so you have 9 cards. So just these cards alone are already 9 cards that are gone from your deck. And then you can draw into all of your consistency cards. You can still draw into more item cards to get you more Pokemon. And if you use Trumbeaks, these are more cards that are gone already. So Marshadow just becomes an incredible consistency card exactly in this deck, which also disrupts your opponent, which is pretty nice. And then the last Pokemon, which is the newest addition to the deck and helps the deck a lot to get like going more quickly and be more consistent, which is Emolga. Nazi Gathering. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a Pokemon that has Nuzzle. Coincidentally, he has Nuzzle himself. Reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So yeah, that basically means we bench Emolga, we get an Emolga. Simple deck thinning, and also important for other cards that I will get to into a second. Yeah, I already talked about supporter cards when we were at Marshadow. So we have 4 Lily. We want the turn 1 Lily. It's simple. It's a good card. We just want it. Then we have 2 Erika, which I like a lot in this deck. You can also play more of Cynthia. We only play 1, because I feel like it's enough. And Erika usually is better, because you actually get to keep her hand, for example. Sometimes, or actually most of the times, you have like one good card. Let's say you have a Lost Blender, but you don't have Pokemon. Would you rather Cynthia, hope to get Lost Blender and the Pokemon, or would you just play Erika, which gets to keep your Lost Blender and you just have to draw into Pokemon? I think the choice is pretty simple. Yeah, and it's also important to note that you will almost always, not always, there can be occasions where you can't use Erika, but almost always you are able to use Erika, because Pokemon you can most of the time bench, items you can always play, and you get one energy attachment per turn, so it's pretty easy to not end up with too many cards in hand. And then last but not least, 2 Guzma. Deck only needs 2. Some people even play 1 or 0, simply because Jumpluff, like, none of your Pokemon has an insane amount of retreat cost, aside from maybe Oranguru, which is 2, like, that's the most you can get. So you just, most of them want to smack into reactive, because Jumpluff and Natu, of course, are based on dealing a lot of damage, so you can get the 1-hits. But having 2 Guzma just allows you to target on something on the bench, go for easy 2-shots, and yeah, it just makes sense to play 2 Guzma. Yeah, for the item cards, we have 4 Great Ball, which, yeah, gets you any of your Pokemon. 3 Netball, which gets you your Grass Energy or your Hoppips. We have 4 Communication, which, yeah, wasn't played previously in the deck, but it's incredibly powerful now with Emolga, because you can just put on an Emolga, get your Emolga, use Communication, shuffle in the Emolga you just got, get another Pokemon. And then next turn you still have the Emolga in deck, so you can just do it again. Yeah, and then we also have 4 Lost Blender, which puts 2 cards from your hand into the Lost Zone if you do draw a card. Ideally, of course, you want to put 2 Pokemon into the Lost Zone. So you can, for example, you have an Oranguru in hand. In some decks, like Granbull, for example, or also Persimmon, before this format at least, you wanted to have Oranguru on board. You need your onboard consistency, but in this deck, it's more like it's a backup option. But it's also an additional Pokemon. So it's a backup option, but it's also Lost Blender fodder. So let's say you have Oranguru in hand, you have Trumbic in hand, you have a Natu in hand. Like, you will never use actually 3 in a match. You just Lost Blender away, Oranguru and Natu. That's 2 more Pokemon in the Lost Zone, and you actually get to draw a card. Yeah, then we also have 2 Stretcher, which is important because you can shuffle back your Jumpluffs in case you don't have enough to still be able to use Skiploom's ability, because that's actually very important to also say. You can't use this ability if you don't have a Jumpluff in deck. Like, you can't just put it away and then say, okay, I failed my search. Like you could with Ultra Ball and stuff. You can only play this ability if you actually put a Jumpluff down. So it makes sense to actually have more Jumpluffs than Skiplooms, because let's say you put down Hoppip, like 2 Hoppips turn 1, evolve them into Skiploom turn 2, use the ability. Okay, fine. Then let's say you have to Lost Zone, or you want to Lost Zone a Jumpluff with a Lost Blender, which can happen easily. Then you already down a Jumpluff. Then you have still 2 Hoppip, Skiploom in your deck or in your prices, wherever, but you actually don't have enough Jumpluffs anymore. So then playing Stretcher actually allows you to use stability, which in return also means you get 2 more Pokemon into the Lost Zone, which gets you 40 more damage. So just super good. And Stretcher also gets you back Natu, which we only play 3 of, because the deck space is pretty tight. So yeah, we want to use it as efficient as possible, which is also the reason why I don't play for Emolga, because I think you don't need for Emolga, and it's one of the cards you can actually afford cutting. And yeah, Rescue Stretcher usually just gets you back Jumpluff or Natu. Sometimes you can also like get a Marshadow back or Hoppip if it gets KO'd, but usually it's just going to be for those 2. Yeah, we only have 1 tool, which is 1 Choice Band, which I'm actually very surprised most people don't play. But I feel like, especially with tag teams now, it becomes important that you actually get to hit those numbers. I mean, of course, in theory, you could put 4 Trumbeak into your Lost Zone. That's 4 Pokemon in the Lost Zone. You can put these 8 Pokemon into your Lost Zone. That's 12. That's already 240. And then you have Lost Blender for 8 more Pokemon, which is over 300. But that usually doesn't happen. Like, you don't get to use 4 Skiploom abilities. You might not draw into your Trumbeak. Lost Blender, a lot of times you just use it for one Pokemon and an item card, or like a trainer, a supporter card, whatever. Sometimes even for two. And because of all these, like all these cards are only one-time use. Like this Skiploom will only get to the Lost Zone once. This Trumbeak will also go to the Lost Zone only once. Lost Blender will also be able only to use like once, because you cannot get it back. So I feel like adding those extra 30, just having the option to be able to only have 9 Pokemon to your discard to carry Zoroark, only having to put 11 into the Lost Zone to be at like 220 damage onto a Pikachu Zekrom, and then attach Choiceman, still have the KO. I think it's just so good, so powerful, that I really don't understand why people don't go for it, but I would also not go for more. I think one Choiceman is the perfect amount. It's good. You can just attach it, like it's for stuff like Erika, Cynthia, deck filling. You can still attach the Choiceman if you don't want it in your matchup, but it's also very powerful if you actually get to use it. And then for energies, we have one Super Boost, which is initially just a grass, because if you only have one stage 2, it works as any energy on a stage 2, so it's just one grass, but it still helps to win against something like Shuckle. So you could play 4 grass for double colorless, but I don't see the reason. I mean, of course you have 3 netball, but okay, you most of the time only use netball for grass energy once, maybe twice, and if you already have a grass in hand, which like is, aside from pricing, the only reason why you wouldn't be able to search for one, that's super unlikely. So Super Boost just makes sense. Just having the auto Shuckle, just not automatically having to like scoop against Shuckle, because you can't win. And then 2DC, of course, 2DC, 4DC for the Natus that we can also stretch back. So yeah, that's gonna be the list. I still want to go into some of the, for some reason, less common things. I'm actually surprised that I have to talk about them as less common, because I feel like they make perfect sense, and I don't understand why people go for different numbers. Number 1, for Jumpluff. I've seen a lot of lists, especially on Twitter, playing just 3. That is complete nonsense to me. That really doesn't make any sense. As I earlier explained with the stretcher, you want to be able to use your ability. Let's say you price 1 Jumpluff. That already means you can use 2 abilities maximum if you don't get your Jumpluff event. Then even if you get your Jumpluff, you still have to communication it back into your deck, because you don't have any discarding effects. You cannot discard it with Ultra Ball and shuffle it with Stretcher. You need to use communication for Jumpluff. Next case. 1 is priced, 1 is in your hand. Then you already need to use 1 in communication for the 1 in your hand. And that just makes you struggle a lot, because it's not like having a lot of Jumpluffs in your deck is bad. No, it's the opposite. Like, you're very happy that if you use your Jumpluff, like, let's say you have 2 Jumpluffs on board, 1 Natu. Okay, Jumpluff gets KO'd. What's the best you can do? Of course you can play down a Natu. You can play down a Natu, attack. Okay, it's fine. But you can also put down a Hoppip, in the next turn evolve into Skiploom, and get a Jumpluff instead of the Natu, and 40 more damage in your Lost Zone. So I really, really disagree with anyone that plays less than 4 Jumpluff. Like, that absolutely doesn't make any sense to me. Next thing, Emolga. I've seen people play 4. 4 of course is fine, but like in my games I played, I figured like you never want to actually bench 2. It's so rarely that you actually bench 2, because most of the time you have like, I mean, of course, your ideal turn 1 board is like, you have 1 Emolga, you have 3 Hoppip, you have 1 Natu, and then you Marshadow, and then you Marshadow into supporter. So let's take a look at this board. And so what cards could you switch for Emolga, for the second one? Number 1, you have less Hoppip, which means Hoppip gets KO'd, you only get to use 1 ability. That's already a no-go. You want to have the Hoppips. Next thing, your Emolga gets like you switch Emolga for Emolga. Does make sense. Okay, next one. Marshadow instead for Emolga. Most realistic one, but also it's not really that realistic that you actually bench 3 Hoppip, 2 Emolga, and Natu, and didn't have to use Marshadow. That would require you to have an insanely lucky turn, and okay, sometimes you get so lucky, but that happens rarely, so why would you not rather build your version of consistency that you actually win those games where you can't afford to do it? Next, the Natu. You also want the Natu on board because that means you have an option to attach your DCE to. Okay, done. So what we figured out, basically, the only option that you can realistically switch is Marshadow if you high roll. Okay, but if you high roll, you win anyways. So there's no reason to play more than 3 Emolga, because you can still, you use your Emolga once, you use a communication, you get to keep your Emolga. You use your Emolga once, use a Lost Spinner with your Emolga that you search for, you still have another one in your deck. So you can still, the turn after, still Emolga for communication. So I think 3 is actually the perfect number, in my opinion. 4, of course, that means you have more Pokemon. But what confuses me the most is that people actually decide to go for 3 Jumpluff and 4 Emolga. Which basically means you take out a very important consistency card that wins you games because it's your main game plan, for a win more card, or for if I high roll, I can use like Emolga twice in one turn. And yeah, I really don't want that. So I went for the Jumpluff strictly. I think it's strictly better to play 4 Jumpluff, 3 Emolga. I'm 100% convinced that this is the better one. And yeah, also another one, again, the Choice Band. I feel like it's a very good card in the deck, especially now that decks like Venusaur, hinting at the game maybe that I played. Yeah, and like Pikachu, Snorlax, all of these big tag team GXs are around, and it also makes it easier to KO normal GXs. Yeah, I think that this is very good, and I hope you will also enjoy some interesting stuff happening in the game. So yeah, enjoy. So as you can see, we're actually up against Venusaur, which I already hinted at during the deck list. And our game plan here is actually going to be to set up the one-hit KO onto Venusaur, which is pretty realistic with our list. I mean, it's not super realistic, let's be fair. Like, buff padding Venusaur, 270 plus buff padding 320, and then either Paradise or either Foundation, 350 HP basically. That's not going to be an easy task. I hit them with the hello here because I think I played against him before, like with a different deck. And yeah, our starting hand is looking very good. Of course, Lily would have been perfect, but it's still nice. All the Emolgas are in deck. And we get to bench a lot of Hoppips turn 1. That means a lot of Skiplooms turn 2, hopefully. And we have 3 Skiplooms in the deck, so we can use 3 abilities. There's not really a lot that we would hope for. But it's very nice that we can actually Lost Spinner for 2 Emolga here. Of course you can argue that communication is still in the deck, so we want to keep Emolga. But making use of a Lost Spinner for 2 Pokemon that's not Trumbeak or anything on the Jumpluff line is just so good. And I mean, we have a lot of like consistency cards left in the deck anyway, so getting the Skiplooms shouldn't be too unlikely. I mean, we still have all the Great Balls, we still have yeah, Lost Spinner to dig, we still have supporter cards. We already have one Skiploom in hand already. And to be fair, normally you don't even expect to be in the like Venusaur one-shot range by turn like 5. I mean, most of the time this matchup is actually pretty close because because Lost March actually takes that long to take the yeah, to set up the one-hit KO. Yeah, of course you want to use Skiploom here before Great Ball, simply because to thin your deck. And there we get another Hoppip, which you could argue that we don't want, but you could also still get. Depends on if you want to play it safe, that your opponent doesn't Guzma your Hoppips. I decided against it because if he doesn't deal with my active like Jumpluff that's attacking him, then he's not doing anything. So yeah. Yeah, they will judge him. They will actually get another communication, so we can get another Jumpluff ability this turn. And we didn't even have to use Emolga for it. So that means we're already at 2 Skiploom, 2 Hoppip, and 2 Emolga in the Lost Zone. So still no Trumbeak used yet, so whenever we draw one, we can just put it into the Lost Zone. So in my experience with Lost Match, it's actually the most important to use your Lost Splendors and your Jumpluffs early on. Because the later the game gets, it becomes way more likely that you have to Lost Splendor like Trumbeaks and stuff. So if you actually get to use it early, for example, like here, another Lost Splendor for Oranguru and Natu, that's another 2 Pokemon in the Lost Zone. So we had so many Pokemon in the Lost Zone already, and we didn't use a single Trumbeak yet. It's like the dream setup. And I decided to Marshadow him again because I just want to see as many cards as possible during these turns. And as you see, I get another Skiploom, I get the Trumbeak. And yeah, with the 3 Jumpluff version, this would have already not been possible anymore because your Jumpluff could be in your hand, you could have used it, it could be in your prizes. Of course, if it would stay in the deck, it would be possible, but if it's prized, then... And with this version, it's super safe to still use it. And Lost March. Yeah, so at this point, I'm pretty convinced that I already, like, basically won. Simply because he benched 3 Shaman and I have access to Guzma, which means I don't even have to deal with 2 Venusaurs. Like, I K1 and I can Guzma Shaman, KO. And him setting up Shaman doesn't do anything for him because my plan is to one-shot the Venusaur anyways. So I don't care about him healing 40 every turn. Because I'm setting up for the 1-hit KO anyways. Yeah, so we had a ton of Pokemon in the Lost Zone already. Which is pretty incredible. And also benching Shaman makes my Erika a lot better against him. Because if you only had 1 Venusaur, Erika would only get me 1 card at this point. But now it actually gets me 5. It's a pretty big difference. Yeah, then we can actually netball for another Hoppip, which with Lost Bender is another Pokemon in the Lost Zone. But if we hit something with Great Ball, that's 2 more. That's actually a Jumpluff. So, but this would have definitely not been possible with the 3 Jumpluff version, because we get to Lost Zone 1 and we already used 3 abilities. So here, just attaching to put pressure onto his Venusaur. And of course, he can GX next turn to heal, but then his GX is out and that's fine. This hand is actually looking pretty bad for me because I... like most of the cards still left in my deck are like playable or consistency cards. I actually have a Guzma and 3 DC now, so that means I have a supporter card and 3 energies. So playing Erika becomes very unlikely next turn, which is pretty sad. And this is like one of the ways I can still lose this game, by simply not being able to attack or just bricking in some way. Quickly checking his overall HP at this point, which is 320. No stadium in play, so only 320. Yeah, there's the Lily. So now we have 2 options. We either retreat into Marshall and pass, hope that we get something to play, or we go for Lily for 1. Now we could also go for a Guzma onto the Venusaur, which I decided to go, because that actually means he has to play Guzma of his own. Some misplay I made during this turn is I should have definitely attached a DCE to one of the Marshadows, because I would allow them to freely retreat, and it would also allow me to draw more cards, or be likely to draw cards with Erika next turn or with Lily. But on the other hand, losing this Jumpluff means I will have to use Natu for the rest of the game, so it's also kind of risky. And there we get another Guzma. So now we have to go for lead for the dream 100%, because otherwise we just fall way too far behind. And it's the dream. It's the Natu. For another 260. So next turn it becomes way more likely that we're actually able to play Erika, because we played at least one card every turn before and 2 cards during this turn. Or, I mean, if you want to consider Lily as 1 card as well, then it's actually 3, like Natu, Lily, DCE, but I think you get what I'm saying. For some reason he decides to not heal before switching, which definitely is a misplay. But then again, if I have Guzma and Attacker, it probably doesn't matter, and if you uses the Venusaur like he is right now, then it just doesn't matter because he promotes it again. But it would definitely been the correct play, because he didn't know what he got from Switchia, so he should have healed before and then switched 100%. And a Solar Beam. So now we have to get either Stretcher or another Natu. And we got the Choice Band already. And thankfully we can still play Erika without having to play Choice Band down. That's actually very important. And we get double Stretcher and we get a Trumbeak. So we can Lost Zone some Pokemon. So now we are at, like, we did 260 last turn, but that was before Ether Paradise, so that would be 230 now. So 250 with the Trumbeak. Yeah, but him playing Judge is not too unlikely, but we get 3 prizes and we still have quite a lot of consistency cards still left in deck. Only need to take like 2 more. There we get a lot of Pokemon, so Lost Blender becomes yeah, an easy option to list on 1 more Pokemon. And we have 2 Trumbeak, so if they aren't priced, then there's at least 2 Trumbeak in the last 5 cards of the deck. So getting the KO next turn onto the Venusaur is actually not unlikely. Of course we need to use Stretcher next turn for Natu. And we have DCE in hand, we have Choice Band, so, and we have Great Ball for the last cards in our deck, and I'm not sure how many Pokemon there are in last turn right now. But I think I'm gonna check it soon anyways. Now there's 2 Trumbeak. The correct play here is to play the Trumbeak before using stuff like Lost Blender, because that's just thinning the deck at this point. Because best case I yeah, still draw into cards that I can Lost Zone. Or maybe it was even, wait, 2, 6, 9, 10, 11, 15, 16, that's 320. He has 320, but he gets minus 30, so Choice Band is exactly game. And if you look at it, without Choice Band, this wouldn't have been game. And the Choice Band really doesn't hurt you in any, like, way during other matches. And there we go. Attaching the Choice Band. And boom. 320 damage with Lost March. Natu one-shotting the Venusaur. That's the dream. And we got it. I hope you enjoyed it. I really think this is incredibly good and definitely one of the best, maybe even the best, considering what lists of Lost Match I've seen so far. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will give the deck a try. I mean, it has a lot of troublesome matchups against like Spread or against Ultra Necrozma. But other than that, it's a very cool deck. It's very fun to play. And yeah, I will see you guys next time.